Well, I tried to be cautious and say, you know what, let's not jump to conclusions. It doesn't look like the Americans are involved necessarily. Why would, U.S. interests want to assassinate the president of Haiti? I have never heard anything about the president of Haiti being of interest to the Americans. I've never heard him smeared. What's this all about? And then lo and behold, evidence is starting to come out. The assassins are starting to squeal, and it seems like, it's not 100% confirmed yet, but it seems like the U.S. government, or at least of some faction within the United States, certainly American interests, are behind the assassination of the former president of Haiti. Now, what's interesting is I mentioned that there were Americans who were a part of this group that's been arrested so far and is being charged with the murder of the Haitian president. But those two Americans don't seem to be the ones, don't seem to be like masterminds behind the plot or anything, or even leaders. They claim that they were hired as translators because they are Haitian Americans, and so they speak Haitian Creole, and they could probably help the 17 Colombians who have been arrested get around Haiti. Colombians, of course, speak Spanish, not, a form of French. And they all claim to have been hired by a company called CTU Security out of Doral, which, for those of you who don't know, Doral is I guess you'd call it a suburb of Miami, although, it's like right there. It's in Dade County. It's one of the western extremities. I think there's nothing between Doral and the Everglades. It's kind of, once you get that far west in Dade County, you go any further, there's a very well-defined line where the Everglades starts, and you're not allowed to build anything anymore, and that's, I believe, where Doral ends. Trump has a golf course there. There's a lot of rich Venezuelans who have moved to Doral. It's a ritzy section of town. Well, anyway, CTU Security is run by a guy named Tony Intriago, who apparently is a Venezuelan citizen living in the U.S. since 2009, and he, in addition to being a big opponent of the Maduro regime, i.e. he's aligned with U.S. interests, he claims that while he was in Venezuela, he worked directly for the United States as sort of an asset of, I don't think he used again, this is kind of a game of telephone because these are anonymous sources speaking to the Miami Herald about this guy Intriago and saying that he boasted of being connected to U.S. agencies, I believe is the word they used. They didn't specifically say intelligence agencies or military agencies, but, it's one of those two things. It's someone in the Pentagon, or I guess, well, no, not the DOJ. It would be someone within the Pentagon. All of the foreign operating intelligence agencies, for the most part, would be Pentagon connected. So in other words, he's a Fed, and his company apparently was employing these guys who are accused of assassinating the Haitian president. I guess we don't know that for a fact that these guys did it. They could be framed. It's totally possible in this situation that these guys who they captured are they're just having the crime pinned on them. Because I wasn't there. I didn't see these guys, disguised as DEA agents go shoot up the president of Haiti's house. But while nothing is 100% for certain, the way things are going, it looks like the U.S. was involved, and it looks like the U.S. Was behind this in some way. And frankly, the only reason at this point why I am not definitively saying, oh, okay, this was an American coup, the reason why I left a question mark in the thumbnail when I talked about this the other day, is because there has been no propaganda that I've seen leveled against this guy. I have not seen the U.S. media try and defame the president of Haiti and call him a dictator and call him, and say he's got to go. He's a bad guy. We can't have him around. They haven't found some sock puppet pretender like Juan Guaido who they can prop up and say, oh, this is the real president of Haiti. They haven't done that. And so if the U.S. really was going to stage a coup against the Haitian president, I would think that they would at least go that far and, assassinate his character before they assassinate his physical being. And the other thing is, these kinds of assassinations, just in my recollection, it's not really how the U.S. intelligence operates. Because this wasn't a coup. It wasn't even a color revolution. It was, it was a very crude assassination. And as the Miami Herald points out, this guy, Tony Intriago, couldn't be behind the whole thing himself, because he doesn't seem to be the kind of person who was of sufficient means to arm and train this many men to go and carry out this kind of an operation. It seems like something that is beyond the capability of a guy who is, who rents some office space, office and warehouse space, in a strip center in Doral, who I think seems to spend most of his time teaching concealed carry classes. At least that's his cover. People who the Miami Herald talked to, the neighbors of his business said, well, people go in and out of there, all throughout the week for concealed carry classes. And that seems to be, that's what the neighbors thought was the main part of their business. And now we're told, oh no, these guys trained in armed commandos to go and assassinate the president of a foreign country. I mean, can it just be that easy? Is Haiti that soft of a target that, some random Venezuelan immigrant to the U.S. Can arm up some Colombians and just go and take out the president of Haiti? And so, the Herald seems to, the folks writing this story, and I think they're correct, seem to be searching for a deeper meaning in this, some more substantial, if not mastermind, substantial benefactor of these folks. Intriago seems to be the cutout that was used in order to carry out this assassination, because they're all openly saying, hey, we worked for this guy, this company. I believe the CTU Security is what it's called, and that stands for Counterterrorism Unit, which is a pretty generic name. So there seems to still be a lot left to unpack here. It will be interesting if these guys end up offing themselves in prison. But then again, I don't think that the Mercs necessarily would know a whole lot about who was behind this, because that's why you use a firm like CTU. You use them, again, as a cutout to do your dirty work, so that all of the Mercs, when they get captured, say, oh, I worked for CTU, and then the only folks who know who the real client was, who was really behind the assassination, would be this guy Tony Intriago. And so it's a lot easier to clean up the mess of doing away with him alone than it would be to do away with all the Mercs. And the Miami Herald was unable to reach him for any comment on this story, so it'll be interesting to see if he ends up popping up anywhere, whether that be dead or alive. The fact that CNN immediately was trying to blame this on drug dealers is quite suspicious to me. My guess is that if there is an official narrative which is going to cover up the eventual truth, what we will hear is that this Tony Intriago fellow was hired by some drug dealers to carry out this assassination. Whether or not that's true or not is unclear, but that's one narrative that I think they could go with if there's something that they're trying to hide. Not saying that that's impossible. It is possible that some drug dealers in Haiti didn't like the president, and they found some mercenary firm or security firm in Miami to try and carry this out. Again, though, if that were the case, would they pick a small fry like this guy, who doesn't seem to have a whole lot of experience with this sort of thing? He kind of seems like a front man to me. It doesn't seem like someone who you would honestly go to if you were trying to carry out an assassination. It seems like somebody wanted to carry out an assassination. They wanted to sort of launder the operations through this guy's company. But again, I'm still in a more speculative phase at this point because we do not know enough. But we learned a whole lot more than we knew initially. So information is coming out about the story. Hopefully that continues, and we end up learning what actually happened. Because I would like to know the answer to whether or not my government was involved with this, so that we can add it to the list of American coups, or hopefully we don't. So, with that said, I guess I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.